We've got you a present right next to the roasted pheasant. Oh no. Sorry, goat's late. Been quite the day. But goat sure there's enough food to fill goat's plate. I jump back in my chair and hide behind the blood-brain pudding. I start to shake more with every sound of footing. Suddenly the air goes cold and the hall's filled with silence. Fight or flight kicks in and it's not saying...
Okay, here we are back in the Roman Anton Podcast studio. Can I say a friend of Roman Anton? Because you introduced us many years ago.
We're friends.
I have Swordfish here today, so it's a pleasure to have you. Thanks for coming
thanks
in.
for having me.
Yeah, good. Well, we've been back in touch since COVID. I guess we were in limited touch before, but you sent over some work, and I have a feeling a lot has happened since COVID for you.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, good for you.
Well, thanks.
And maybe there's bad stuff I don't know because you have sort of a whimsical look on your face. But from the art side, I guess you've been up to a lot of stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, I have to say, in this year and last year, what I've really been pushing myself in is animation, actually.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm grateful that ties into all my artistic endeavors, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, so that's the tagline, artist, drawings, music, other things. So let's go way back. I asked you this question when we were setting things up. One could easily ask Swordfish the question, was Swordfish born in Bangkok, because of the fluency of your Thai language, right? Alone, and your knowledge of the area. Were you born in Thailand?
I was born in the UK, but
Okay.
I've been in Thailand for 7 years so far.
Okay, and that's even more embarrassing to me because the language proficiency is a lot better than my 12 years. Do you identify with an area of the UK that you're from?
I mean, I was born in Surrey, very much a southern fairy, as a lot of Brits would say. But I personally have never felt a very strong connection with the UK. I'm always going to be British, no matter what. But you know, the UK has given me a lot of opportunities, but it's not really a place that I truly identify with, I would say.
Yeah, I gathered that, and I didn't gather it because you were negative about it. I just gathered you had moved away, and
Never looked back.
Right. So Surrey, Oxford. Did you school there at all, or did you leave at an early age, or what happened?
Yeah, I had my education in the UK. I left at the age of 19.
Okay.
I had the opportunity to go to university, or I had caught wind about this internship in Bangkok to work in a production house for 6 months. And that was a bit of a gamble for me because, you know, I had to fly over to have the interview. And if it didn't work out, that's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
But thankfully, it did work out. And that opportunity, that internship led to 7 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about that in sequence then. So, so since your education was in the UK, what you're a kid, you're a child in Surrey still?
Yeah, I'll say my parents were quite fickle. They like to move around a lot.
Okay, all right.
But
or choosy.
but you know, a lot of the whole time we were in the south, bouncing between different places.
So just for listeners who don't understand, and for maybe me as a disguise, I don't understand. In the south, do you mean below London? Is that south?
Yes.
Would that be if I were there and I said, hey, I live in the south of the UK, people or England, they'd understand the meridian is London and below?
Well, London is still part of the south as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
when does south start then? What's the northernmost start of south?
That's a good question.
All right, not a test. And so you moved around the south, and so your family or their family was there?
Yeah. I mean, well, any place that we moved to, we didn't really have anything there for us waiting.
Right.
It's more just like, let's change it up.
Yeah.
You know? And I, in retrospect, I appreciate that because I got to see a lot of different places. But when you're a school child, you don't really have an opportunity to make friends for very long.
Yeah.
You go from one school and you meet a clique that you really like, and then the next year you're off to another school. So it's like, right.
I'd be curious if you kept any of the friends as you moved down your path. Like, let's just say friendship one started when you're 6. Did any of that stick, or was it sort of later friends?
Yeah, there's maybe one person.
Yeah, who knows you from way back when? Yeah. I have a couple of those. There were some girls. There are some girls. There's mainly guys, I guess. Kindergarten, 4 or 5, or pre-K, like 4 or 5. I actually went back home to the States and went to a baseball game with one of them. So it was
cool.
2 of them, actually. So it's a long time contacts, which seems strange, but I guess is normal. Maybe doesn't have to be called anything. So you're moving around. Are you destroyed with each move, or do you get hardy and build up and say, all right, this is fun. I'll beat up some new kid and be the bully of the playground, or how does it all work?
Well, I think at the time I just sort of accepted it. It's like, okay, this is a new change. Going to any school really for me, it was kind of a jarring experience. I was definitely a very sensitive kid.
Yeah.
Even now, still quite sensitive, I reckon. But it wasn't anything that I couldn't overcome. It was all you just got to take it in stride. There's nothing I can do about this change. The change has happened, so let's adapt.
That's a pragmatic approach. I mean, I guess if we are made of 100% of something and 80% of your move was committed to dealing with the change, then, that's an excessive amount of burden, right? But if your pragmatism made you 90%, like, oh, whatever, I'm moving again. I'm going to sweat it for 10%, then I guess that's easy. So, okay. Were you alone? No brothers, sisters?
I have a brother.
Younger?
Older brother.
Older. Yeah. Okay. So he had to fight for you and pave the way a little bit.
Yeah.
How much older?
A couple years older. He's 28.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And we are polar opposites, I would say.
Oh, so he wouldn't fight the way for you.
Well, he'd be the one fighting. I'm the one who's like, I'll let him carve the path.
Good. Yeah. Well, that helps, I would imagine, scholastically, if he's smart or strong and there's a niche you can sort of hide behind to.
Yeah.
And so were you guys buddies, or was he just an opposite and he punched you in the face every morning? Hello.
The latter. Yeah, okay. I love him very much. As we've gotten older, we've become a lot closer.
Yeah. But, and as have you gotten taller, right? Now you're probably taller than he is. Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. And so, young age, you're pragmatic about the moves. The brothers out there may be clearing a little bit of a path for you, or maybe leaving in the wake. It's unclear which. The parents are doing their thing. Can I ask, does it matter what they were doing, or do you want to talk about what they were doing? Or
I mean, they were just doing their thing, really. They were still raising us as best they could, And,
working or just moving around, or
working as well. Yeah.
Okay.
My dad did a lot of work in like estate management and things like that, and my brother followed a similar path, but that was something I was personally never really interested in. I never really sort of asked my dad about things like that.
Right.
I think when I was younger, I very much just let my daydreaming take me where I want to go. I was never so business orientated.
Right. So you didn't want to go in and sell Wayne Manor for Bruce Wayne.
Exactly.
Even though he's American. The British version of that. You didn't want to itemize the silverware, and I guess that's what estate management is, but it's sort of numbers and dollars and cents or pounds. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So just didn't appeal to you from the start. Your capabilities might have been there, but you didn't want to do that.
Yeah. Though as I get older, I realize the importance of business now.
Yeah. And doesn't mean you're good at it.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. So did you have some lost love of accounting that you didn't grab a hold of?
I mean, I'm still definitely not invested in any kind of business pursuit like that.
Okay.
It's actually more of a very recent epiphany that, like, oh, wow, business is like one other half of the pie.
Yeah. For your art, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm not asking this to make to say you're a dummy or I'm smart or I'm not smart and you're smart, but more to figure out and more specifically, the red duck, when we get to it, is so elaborate. I'm thinking, this is not a scientist. And then I thought, well, maybe this is. Maybe this guy, the way, because it's fairly elaborate, right, in its construction, and even sort of the acting components you do and the voices. I thought, well, I don't know, maybe this is how Elon Musk thinks. I don't know, but it's elaborate enough to keep together for 10 minutes that I thought, a guy could walk in with a PhD in physics or something. So nothing pulling you. So it was more creative from the start. So reading at a young age?
I actually did not read a lot as a kid, which I found quite strange in retrospect. I think I enjoyed comic books and things like that. I would doodle a little bit and things like that, but it was really just thinking of stories in my head.
Fantasy world.
Seeing a lot of different like patterns and drawing inspiration from that.
Can you give me an example that you actually remember from first or second grade, what I'd call 7, 6, 8 years old, where you wove together some pattern in your head that you haven't changed over time and like made up? Like, I connected the Sistine Chapel with, but something you remember. Because I could give you anecdotes of seeing stuff in my hometown of Racine, Wisconsin that would be fairly banal or uneventful, but were very dramatic. Getting up one night, looking out the window, Lake Michigan, the moonlight lit a path from the shore to the moon, and I couldn't differentiate the path. That image is stuck with me. I remember it very vividly as a kid. I know I saw it. I didn't make this up. It's not something in retrospect. It's an early memory. I don't have a lot of those, right? But that's when I have. So you seemed very specific in saying you connected dots or things.
When I say that, it's like, have you heard of pareidolia?
No.
So basically, pareidolia is
Have you heard of pareidolia? No, Frank, that's 2 in the room, no. And 1, yes.
Essentially, it's
preach.
It's like a psychological phenomenon, right? Where our brain makes connections between things that aren't really there. So, when you look at the clouds and you think, oh, that kind of looks like an elephant.
Right.
That's pareidolia.
It's not really there.
Yeah.
Okay. And but you see an image that looks like an elephant.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. And it's essentially a trait of our ancestors. Back in the day when we'd be hunting in the jungle and things like that, we might see a fern that looks like a snake, and it makes our survival instincts heighten.
Huh.
But, since we live in this modern society, it just comes across as hallucinations.
Huh.
But as a child, I would have this like very intensely, where I would just sort of see animals and creatures everywhere. And I sort of realized over time that no one else is seeing this as well. It's just me.
Okay.
And I was never afraid of it. I think there are some people who have described my art style as quite ghoulish or a little unnerving and things like that. But I was never afraid of what I saw. And, to me, it's almost like they're my children, all these creatures. And it wasn't until I was much older that I started like properly drawing them, and that really helped me, process it even better in my head.
Yeah,
because it was never a downside to me, but it's like I couldn't always see reality. Where it's like I could look at a tree and it's like, okay, I can see this is just like a collection of bumblebees in my mind or something like that, but I can't actually see the tree.
Yeah,
yeah.
So you use the word hallucination. Is that if I looked up pareidolia on something, Wikipedia or something, would that word be in there, or do you think you stretched?
I think you could call it a hallucination, yeah.
So if I see the elephant and you see the elephant, are we hallucinating the same?
That's a good question.
Have you talked me into the vision? What if we both said simultaneously, that looks like an elephant? And then if it tremendously looked like an elephant, or it was actually the imprint of an elephant, this guy. Well, it's interesting. I'm trying to get to the bottom of this because I think hallucination is the right word. Like, it's a cloud.
Yeah.
That happened to take a shape that we can both associate, but that's,
yeah.
Is that hallucinatory? I guess it is to me. I guess I'll go with that definition. So, wow, did you ever stick your hand in one of your hallucinations and have reality bite back? Did you look in the blender and say, that's a cotton ball? You know what I mean?
Thankfully not, no.
So it never got harmful to you?
No.
Or I'm not trying to make you admit to murder.
No, that's okay. I'm glad it never reached that point, because then I feel at that stage it would it wouldn't even be pareidolia. That would be something much more
Right, psychosis or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Schizophrenia.
But thankfully, no, my creatures never bit me.
and it was always animals. It was never like you saw a Fender Stratocaster. Like
For the most part, it is animals. Sometimes it's jewelry or other little things. It really depends on the shape itself. But the most part, it is animals.
Yeah.
And what's quite interesting about that is the more that I would draw these creatures and that would develop into its own style, the creatures that I saw would look more like my art style. Like they were becoming more defined.
So as you drew it, they got closer to the images in your head that you saw?
Yeah, but it's like, I would see this shape right, and then I would draw that and turn that into a creature. But at the same time, there's like a little bit of creative leeway I would take where
Right.
Maybe I would change this up, and the shapes would be more refined here, that kind of thing.
You could add horns to it.
Yeah, and things like that.
Would you put the jewelry on the animal? I mean, did it sort of...
It totally can, yeah.
Yeah, and was that disassociated object part of a larger thing that hadn't come together? Or?
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I never really questioned it. I was never like, where is this coming from, or why am I seeing this? It was more just like, oh, there's another one.
Oh, can you get that a little straighter to you, and then it'll sound even better? Because this is awesome to me. And I'm sorry if that's uncomfortable. We can change it if you want, but this is interesting. Have you ever talked to anyone else who's shared this? Is there some club you can join, or is there some internet stuff that Pareidolia incorporated? Or
well, I believe that everyone has it to some degree. I believe that some have it more intensely than others. But I remember having a chat with my dad in a restaurant one time and telling him about it. And I was saying, like, do you also see these things around?
By the way, I'll have a beer and a sandwich. And Dad, do you see?
And my dad was like, yeah. In fact, I can see a wizard in one of those wooden panels over there. I thought, right. And that sort of confirmed for me that, like, okay, great, I'm not alone, which is awesome. But I also had this sort of fear that it would sort of fade away as I became an adult, as I became older, and things like that. Yeah, as if it was some sort of like childhood whimsicality that I had harnessed.
Adolescent thing that expires, right?
But and I think because during like say COVID times, I was very, very stressed, and it would manifest differently. Like I had never been so stressed and concerned about the direction that the world was going in my life. So it would really take on a different form. And as my dad sort of helped me realize that it doesn't actually go away when you're older. For me, during COVID times, to get a little bit vulnerable, it did get a little bit on that sort of psychosis level where, every time I would open something, anything that could open or close, there would be something that sort of peeks in as it's closing or opening, And this could be a cupboard, a door, literally anything, and I would see these sort of creatures peeking in and out.
So would it be the can of corn that you were looking for, but in some nascent shape? As the light hit it, it would have eyes and arms, or would it be against a blank canvas?
It would be a blank canvas.
Wow.
There would be nothing for it to build off, and yet it would take a peek at me.
Yikes! Did you have to sort of talk yourself around that, or did you just not open doors? Or I assume you have a reaction to that, right? Like leave everything open, right?
Yeah, like, is there a poltergeist?
Right. Well, I'm not laughing, but I mean, I'm hearing this for the first time, and I'm a problem solver, I guess, at heart. So I'm going to say, did you fix it? Did you? I
did fix it. I'm glad to say that it's gone back to normal. But it was very strange for me at the time, where I thought I've never had it like this. I've never had it kind of form in a way where it's almost like it's trying to scare me or something.
Yeah. Right. It's right. So it became proactive.
Yeah. And I suppose just as I took better care of myself and, regulated my stress and started meditating and all these other things, it really, it went back to normal. And that was the only time in my life in 2020 when I was having that for a month or two.
Yeah.
And then I'm happy to say that it's never come back.
Which months? February, March, April? The early stages, like the first lockdown?
I would say maybe like October, November sort of time.
So later in.
Yeah.
You've been,
lots of things going on around that time. You know,
right.
but,
You're wondering about everything like we all were. It was pretty firm, the lockdown here. We didn't get a lot of wiggle room, right? Yeah. So can I ask what part of town you live in?
Right now I'm living in Ramkhamhaeng.
How about before, during that period?
I was living in Tonglo.
Okay.
Yeah. I had a shared apartment with 2 other people. Good people. And, you know, they knew about my pareidolia. And I had I remember I explained to them and they were just kind of like, are you sleeping okay? You know, you're getting enough rest and all this? Problem
solvers, like me, right? Like, turn the lights on, bro, or something. So this is interesting. So I want to jump back. When did you first have the pareidolia discussion with your dad? Many years ago, recently?
Well, I must have been like 21 or something.
Okay. Still not
that long ago.
Full candor with dad's stage of life. Still, you're sort of still fencing as the young adult, and he's the senior man still, and he's...
It was different as a child, you know, because I would see it, but, you know, I wouldn't even, like, draw it or like, take those ideas anywhere. I would just see it and think, oh, okay, that's there. And then, you know, as I got a little bit older, it's like, okay, no one else is seeing that.
Yeah.
And it just sort of became something in the background. And it wasn't actually until I moved to Bangkok at the age of 19 that I started drawing and doing all this. I had like done some art stuff as a kid, but it wasn't until I came here that I really pursued it.
So no mates, young ones, middle-aged ones, 12, 13, 14. You didn't share this with anyone? You weren't like, you didn't have the Cyclops Club or something where you talk about what you're seeing and you were...
No, not really. I mean, it's like...
No Wizard Club, no board game, no like Dungeons and Dragons Club, or nothing that was sort of an offset you could...
Sadly, no. I mean, you know, I had friends where we would definitely explore those imaginative ideas, but, you know, if it's like, if I see something, I'm not going to talk about what I'm seeing, but more about what that idea is itself.
Right.
You know, so it's like, and that's where like a lot of maybe ideas and stories would come from. And I would share those with friends, but I'm not talking about like, oh, this idea came from this fucking crazy pattern I saw on the wall, you know?
Yeah.
To me, it just sort of felt like, it feels natural to me. And it is technically from a natural place, right? But it's just something from the past that our ancestors used a lot. And
I don't for 1 second doubt that, and I'm not, if anything I say sounds cynical or disbelieving.
You're good.
Because there's one, and I gave these things names that I thought you would understand when I said it, but the music and fire scene, to me, was living and breathing, and I thought, all right, I don't know what this is. I don't, you know, I had it sent to me on my phone. I'm trying to read it on my phone. It could come from anywhere, I think, when you're talking about getting stuff through a line chat, right?
Yeah.
So it's sort of hard to, you know, I went to see the Banksy exhibit. I got what he was. I get what medium it was. I sort of understood the surroundings, and, you know, that's different than I think getting stuff on the phone. But when I saw that, I thought, this has a feeling to it. You know, it has a living feeling to it. And so now that you sort of describe it, it had as mystical a feeling to it as when I first read The Hobbit or The Swordstones of Shannara. When I went down the, I don't know what you call those genres, not science fiction. Clearly, they're I don't know what you call that. I've never, you know, what is Harry Potter? Well, how do you describe that literarily? What is that? Is fantasy?
I suppose it is fantasy.
Right.
Yeah.
So, or alternate. I don't know. But I had that same feeling when I looked at that, that's curious that I'm looking at that and thinking of sort of this fireside fantasy with, you know, saber-toothed tigers coming into the, you know, just it had that feeling. I thought, okay, this will be interesting to see. So now that you're sort of describing this, it must have been very interesting having those feelings. Like if what you sent to me gave me feelings and the thing you saw provoked those same feelings, and then you described a narrative to people, it was all sort of a construct, right? It wasn't reality. I mean, you had to jump. You're saying, I just saw this and it made me think of this, which would have been full disclosure type of life like we live now, right? Like, so, you know, to let it all out, right? You're going to, Here you had this huge jump you had to make, like, there was a caveman, and all of a sudden, like, what's this dude talking about again? Like, you know what I mean? Like, when in fact you'd have said, well, I'm going to recite something to you. I just had a vision, which would have been much more, you would have been the mystic, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Swordfish is going to opine. Everyone start writing. You know, and I'm not being facetious, but it must have been a challenge as a kid to, you know, I think of these personality inventories you can take online or elsewhere, the Myers-Briggs. The first element of Myers-Briggs is, are you an extrovert, are you an introvert? And they don't necessarily mean, do you punch people or do you get punched? Introversion is a thinking first and then speaking. And if you're not naturally an I under Myers-Briggs, I imagine there's some challenge. You know, if you're not allowed to think first, you have to speak first. Like if you're an air traffic controller, right? Like, turn, don't land there. You know, you can't think, well, should he not land? You know, crash, right? I wonder if that like got you sideways at all.
I mean,
or if it made you better, if it made you if it put you out ahead of the curve somehow. Like, I'm going to hold that.
Oh, I mean, you know, there's definitely a lot of thoughts and stories and ideas that I'm holding on to that, you know, I'm waiting till I can properly execute them. But I do remember as a child, you know, having a lot of stories just come to me, and I wouldn't know where it, like, sometimes the connection of how that story came from, like, it wasn't always so clear. Yeah. But I would just run with it. I never liked to sort of question that and just run with it. Yeah. And I would, you know, I would tell a lot of these like silly stories to my friends. And a lot of the time, or at least sometimes, there were, you know, people would just think I'm lying or like I'm trying to tell some truth. Yeah. You know, yeah. How can I say it? Like,
I get that. I mean, that's a good explanation.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's,
I'm just getting carried away, but I'm like presenting it as a truth rather than a story or something.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, but you could challenge the red duck to say there are no metaphors or fables or parables within it, but there clearly are, and I could give you 50 historical, cultural references to her losing her hearing and what that means. So this is one of the things, and escalate that or elevate that to high art and say, this perfectly describes blank, right? As opposed to, she asked for it, she got it. You know, like something more that, you know, you could attribute to sort of youthful, you know, don't ask, you know, the age old, right? And so both are fair, but it's still interesting. Well, okay, well, that's interesting. So you tell Dad at 21, did this keep you... how many times did you move during high school, for example? Or did you get high school? To me is 12 to 16 or 14 to 18, I guess.
Well, actually, at that age, I stayed a bit more stagnant because my parents actually divorced. Okay. After that,
sorry about that.
No, it's all good. It's all good. And I went to live with my mum, and she just stayed in one place.
Where was that?
That was in southern England as well. Okay.
So no huge move, but you're alone without Dad, and so are you a solitary kid at that point then, or you got buddies, girlfriends, whatever?
I didn't have any partners at that time, but I was very, I think I was quite eccentric and very exuberant at that time, you know.
Alone? Eccentric and exuberant? Or did you have mates at school?
I had mates. Yeah. And, you know, I feel like back then I was way more outgoing than I am now, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think maybe that, just a little side note, probably had something to do with the pandemic, something that I'm still figuring out. I would say there is still this eccentricity inside me, but when I was a kid, it was very much like, I don't give a shit. I'm just going to fucking do my thing, you know?
Show up in a cape.
Yeah.
Just a top hat. Like, hey, Swordfish, why are you wearing a top hat to chemistry?
Why aren't you? Like,
yeah, right. Yeah, what's wrong with the rest of you guys? Yeah, I mean, and did you sort of run into the propeller blade, or was it just like, I'm free?
It was very much like, no matter what came my way, I can handle it. You know, if a teacher's threatening to send me to the principal or headmaster or whatever, it's like,
bring it on.
I'm gonna be okay. Like I could do this. You know.
Well, it's funny because in one of your clips, you get on stage and say, "I'm nervous," or something to that effect.
Absolutely.
So that's performance anxiety versus life reality. Like, you're going to the principal. Okay, I can deal with that.
Well,
is it because mom and dad won't care, or was it because I have the mental bandwidth to sit in front of a teacher?
Yeah, it's that. You know, it's you know, I can either do the necessary moves, like I know what to do to make sure that I don't get sent, but I can just sort of push the threshold a bit or something, you know, just for fun. But
were you a good student at the same time?
I was really bad at school.
Do you feel like you misdirected energy to things that matter, or you directed energy to things that matter, and things you didn't like you just gave up on?
I was always just inherently attracted to things that interested me.
Okay.
And
math didn't interest you at that point?
Not
Physics?
really, sadly. Like
gym class of interest?
I was never really a sporty kid.
Reading? You said you sort of
I was into like drama, like acting and things like that.
Did you do it? Like the yearly play that we would have at my school? Did you have one of those?
Yeah.
South Pacific or something bizarre?
Casper the Ghost.
Casper the Ghost, right? Jesus Christ Superstar or something. Right? Yeah.
I'm just
musical or acting?
Acting.
Yeah. Okay. So Shakespeare, Shaw, or more contemporary?
Yeah, I mean, there was some Shakespeare stuff. I do remember during some of my school years, there were some of the teachers would sort of try their own original stories.
Oh, right.
You know, it'd be like anti-bullying campaigns, but like it's a story that involves characters and stuff. And I was always like participating in stuff like that.
Would they pick the bully to play the bully, or would they say, "Hey, Swordfish, you're the bully"?
And you're like, I was never the bully, sadly, but like.
But wouldn't the true learning have been if they made you the bully to learn the bully, and then they made the bully the guy who gets thrown out the window?
Exactly.
And exactly. Like, now you know, buddy, what it feels like. Huh. Okay. So because of your sort of cape and top hat potential, did you get picked on for being an individual?
I did, yeah.
And was that a painful encounter, or was that sort of because of this awareness you had, like, there will be guys, and I'm sure it was just guys, there will be guys like that, right, who are going to do that, and you just got to deal with them? Yeah,
I mean, you know, I was pretty much bullied my whole school life, and it's fine to talk about. I just kind of realized that all these things that these other people are like putting on me, it's just about them, you know. I never really took it too personally, because the things I would do, it wasn't to negate them or you know, do anything for them. It's all just for myself. And you know, if someone just didn't like me because of their own reasons, that's their problem, really. Like of course I was on the bad end of it, where I'm getting beaten up and all this kind of stuff. But it's like I didn't like getting beaten up, or
picked on, or yelled at, or whatever.
But it's like, it's clearly like something is going on with them. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to be a bully back and like make their life 2 times as worse, you know. For me, it was very much just like, just accept it and like move on.
Yeah. So I have you need to help me understand how the world is now. Let's just say television is the same as social media. So did the broadcast networks help you with modeling on that? So, for example, Jeff and Sons was a show where you saw, well, Jeff, don't, you know, that's their problem. It's not yours. Did you have modeling for that, or did you come up with these ideas on your own? Because I certainly, when I grew up, none of this was taught on television or my primary sources of third-party information outside of school. And in fact, the bully was sort of beloved, right? I mean, Back to the Future, the one guy, you know, Zip or Biff or whatever his name was.
I've seen it too.
Fonzie. Yeah, I mean, you know, the tough guy was...
They're the popular one. They're the one with all the power.
Right, and Richie Cunningham was the star of the show, I guess, but was less envied in the public eye after the fact of the show, but was the moral, the deliverer of the moral message, right?
Mm-mm.
So how did you get educated? Because that's a fairly high intelligence approach to take to childhood problems. Like,
Well,
you don't know what it's almost the Christ like I'll turn the other cheek. You know, it's like, wait a minute, at 6 you're not supposed to understand that, or 8 or 10.
I mean, there wasn't really any sort of influence like that. You know, I can't think of any shows or media I saw that really sort of instilled that in me. But you know, no idea is original anyway. You know.
Yeah, but you get what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
Today, all social media is going to have impactful messages that you can
For sure.
wrap up and take and say as you're about to get hit. You know, this isn't about me; it's about you. You know, like hoping it's kind of.
For sure, I feel like, you know, for me, it's like I could accept it, but I didn't do anything to sort of stop it the next time it happened. It's like, okay, I know that next time I see this guy, he's gonna wind me in the stomach and all this. But it was just like I had to do what I can to sort of avoid him as much as possible. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Take the long way home. You know, avoid that alley.
Yeah.
Stuff. Just counteractive measures, sort of. But when it was on, you didn't, you know, go learn jujitsu to try and kick the guy in the head.
The thing is, right, the bulk of the bullying that I went through was in a boarding school. So, you know, you're not allowed to watch TV and all these kind of things, but also you're trapped in a big square. So it's like...
What years was that? So that's a big detail to
That was from the age of 12 to 15.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So those are high impact years, right?
Yeah. And, you know, I was in this boarding school in the deep south of the UK. Very diverse. You had people from all over the world, which was really interesting, but it also meant that you had every kind of fuck up.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And
shipped off far away.
Yeah. There's no internet. It's on a sort of small, shitty school internet that's very restricted.
Right, of course, they don't want you watching porn and stuff.
Exactly.
Right? So,
you have all these students like going through puberty and trying to figure themselves out. It's an all-boys school as well.
Just beating each other senseless.
Yeah. And
can you name it, or can you name the city?
The school itself was called Milton Abbey, and it's in Dorset. Yeah.
I've looked that up online from someone, you know, LinkedIn, blah, blah, blah. I've looked up Milton Abbey. I've looked at that. Looked prestigious but austere.
It used to be a castle where one of the first kings of England lived.
Okay. That's cool.
Amazing building, but pretty intense school.
Yeah.
They had this cathedral in the back that there was a plaque inside there. It said it was built in the year like 900 or something like that. It's so old.
Which, I mean, if you're thinking about it, would align with someone very well with pareidolia, but if your images weren't sort of that time period, then it would just be sort of a constant reminder of what you don't think about, I guess. But did that harbor or influence more pareidolialic sightings, if we say it that way? Or
I would still see things, but it's like I can't really focus on that right now. I'm focusing on survival.
Right, get to class without a beating.
Yeah.
Never be alone. Travel in packs.
But it would maybe like I'd see something and it would inspire an idea or a story or something like that. But it was very much just like, I hate it here. I have to have to do what I can.
Wow. So that place really reinforced your desire or your decision to not do conventional education, I would imagine. Once you got in there and got sort of twisted, you were probably like, not going to study. That's not going to help me get out of this short-term situation.
I mean, there's nothing against education. Like education is very important, right? But I just feel like it just made me realize more things about people. Yeah. Really. You cluster a bunch of young, confused, teenagers together and who have all these different problems in their own like personal lives, right? And I don't know, like I've spoken to a lot of people since then from that school, and a lot of like apologized, and others are like, yeah, man, that school as like nothing else, and I hear all these other like horror stories of things emerge. I won't go into like a lot of detail, but a lot of really fucked up things happen for sure.
But you probably hear about great commercial successes that have come out of that type of boarding school as well, right? There's some guy who's now running this, and there's another dude who's the senior partner at that, and there's the guy who built the atom bomb or something. Just like yeah. And I'm not trying to carve you out of defense when they call you back and say why you slagging the school, but yeah, I mean there's the whole retinue of stories, and it's a boarding school, and it's 12 to 15, and so we all suck.
Exactly. Like, I'm not trying to call out the school and being like, shame on you. But I only have my own experiences.
So. And Dead Poet Society. I mean, there's right. So, okay, well, good. I'm glad you added that detail. So you're in boarding school. 15 to 18 is back in school somewhere.
Yeah, I'd left that school and I'd gone to study film. In another school, which was much better.
This is high school, though. How can you study film in high school? Or what I would call the equivalent of high school.
We'd call it college in the UK.
Right, which is...
like just before university.
Right, so how can you study? I thought that wasn't discretionary. I thought you had the curriculum, math, science.
Well, I mean, yeah, I would agree, but...
Okay. you did film, whatever else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's true, actually. I didn't study maths or English or anything like that.
So you just said, I covered that at boarding school. I'm just doing film.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so I did learn a lot at that boarding school in those areas, especially in English. But I mean, yeah, that's interesting to think about. I hadn't really...
Well, I'm not trying to correct a record that I don't know, but it just,
okay,
I had no choice up until I was 19 as to what I studied.
Right.
I guess I had some courses. Was it going to be algebra or calc? What gamble are you going to make? How far are you going to get ahead of the curve for college? Okay, so do you graduate college with some film aspirations?
Yeah, totally. And, I learned a lot about just creative media and how to make films, and also studying old films and all these... It's quite interesting because a lot of the stuff I learned at that time is still very applicable to a lot of the work I find myself doing now. Like even that animation I made for then, at that school I learned a lot about stop motion at one point. And, that really helped with making that Venn animation. Yeah. Because...
So we'll talk about that in a second and show it, but you're referring to VENN, which was the name of an animation?
Yeah, it's the name of the band.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay. So the Venn. Okay. Well, interesting. And so you'd mentioned in the gamble, get on a plane internship, spend all your savings. Was that right after you left film school?
It was actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've sort of caught up with the early teaser narrative of how you got here.
Yeah.
And are mom and dad still in your life at that point, or are you?
Yeah. My dad was the one who actually helped me get this connection.
What does that mean? Like, you don't often hear of, I have to go interview. You hear this story at 18 or 19. I had to interview to the college because it was, they had an admissions process, right? Like you're going to come to Cambridge and you're going to meet 40 people, or maybe COVID's changed that. I don't know now, but I would assume the top schools got to get a look at you. But
yeah, for sure.
But why would they make you fly out? Was that just to show you're interested? Like
I imagine so.
Like everyone wants to come to Bangkok.
Yeah.
But you're 18, which is also sort of like, wow, or 19, right?
Yeah. I just turned 19.
Wow. Still pretty unique. So what was the internship, and how did you find out about it? Through your dad?
So yeah, my dad had traveled a lot around the world, mainly around Asia, after the divorce, and he'd met some people in Thailand, and he was just chatting with one of his friends around that time, saying, "Oh, my son's just finished film school, and he might want to go to university or not. I don't really know." And she was saying, "Oh, well, my friend has an internship going on."
My friend, like the source of the job.
Yeah.
What?
So I went over and I'd had like a online call with the man. It was this French man who ran this production house in Ekamai. It's called TA Prod.
Letter A, Prod, Prod. So Thomas Allen Productions or whatever. There's something like that. Okay. Yeah.
And yeah, I went over and really nice people. We had a deep chat, and by the end he was like, great, well, find an apartment, sort this and that out, and start soon. And I was like, my whole life is changing now.
Right.
And it was it was very sudden, and it was a whole new chapter of my life. And just the same with everything, really. It's like, let's just do it. Don't even think about it. Let's just get into it. And
but was it around the images you saw in your pareidolia? I mean, was that
none of that actually came up. It was more just about what I learned at film school.
Right.
Because I was going to be a runner. I was a runner. Like, I was basically helping them with adverts and, a film at one point. But just basically in the back doing the production side of things.
And was this in an office or a house that was an office or an apartment that was an office?
It was a house that was an office.
And you would show up and you'd get coffee on the way there and you'd take a bike or walk.
Yeah, you get there and there's a sweet woman who give you some mukbang and sticky rice in the morning and a cup of coffee, and sit down and you work with all the producers. Occasionally you'd have different directors coming in. They're like, okay, I got to make this 30-second commercial. So, help me find actors, help me find a location and all these kind of different things. And I was like very much involved in all of that.
So that sounds like, well, there could have been this. Hello, Mr. Swordfish. We're going to need a second name for your badge. and here's how you get in. You pass the badge over the thing. And so you sort of moved away from a conventional office place in a solid business, so movies, but it's not going to be the Grammy office on the 40th floor where you have to wear a white shirt and a black tie every day or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
They're quite casual about it, but yeah, really great place. And even today, they're still making a lot of really awesome stuff.
Okay. Do they have anything? Do they have a website or something you'd shut out, or is it?
Yeah, sure. I can send you something after.
Okay. All right. Well, cool. So you get here. I mean, so how does the discussion? So your dad has had a. By saying he's moved around Asia, I don't think he's doing estate management anymore. Right?
Yeah.
I'm sensing something's changed a little bit. So he's, and nowhere along the line have you mentioned sort of that whimsy of like the Peter Pan life or always remain a kid. I mean, in all of your responses to conflict from 12 to 15 at the boarding school or elsewhere are fairly mature. It wasn't like I would close my eyes and fly away. It would like,
right.
Yeah, I get ready for this guy to kick my ass, and then we deal with the aftermath.
Yeah.
Fairly pragmatically, and I would not be rushing off to do algebra. But it hasn't turned into this super fairy tale existence in your head, like that we see in Hollywood that gets imagined like you fly off at night.
Right.
Yeah.
I say it really started to blossom in Thailand, actually, because, I came here for the 6 months, and it was also just like, I'm in this new place. I don't know anyone. I can't understand anything.
Yeah.
And it's just me. All I have is whatever is going on in here,
Yeah.
And, just like when I was a kid as well, it was very much just like, whatever I'm interested in, I'm going to pursue that.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I remember I used to do these like doodles when I was a kid, but I can't draw now. I can't even like draw a stick man.
Yeah.
And I had all this time, I come back from work and I'm just sitting in my apartment. It's like, well, got to find something to do,
Yeah.
And I would just start drawing things, and then I would think, well, I'm seeing all this stuff anyway. Let's start drawing that, and then it just turned into something.
So how do you do it? Pencil into a notebook?
Yeah,
Loose
that's
sheets of
how I
paper?
started out.
Yeah.
I initially would do it on Post-it notes, and I would have a goal of filling up my entire door. So I put one at the very top, and then every day or whenever I would just put another one on. And
It was the door to what? The front door?
Yeah, my front door. Yeah.
Was that the only door in your apartment?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so was there a bathroom door as
Well,
well?
the bathroom door as well, yeah.
Okay.
But I just focused on the
Back
front
of the
door.
front door, okay.
Yeah.
And did you completely cover it?
I did, yeah, in my first apartment.
Was the goal to cover it, or was the goal to keep going?
To cover it.
Yeah.
But it was interesting as well, because I could see how my style was developing as it went down.
So you're drawing on little Post-it notes, or the
Yeah, the little yellow square ones.
really small ones, or the mid-size?
The small ones,
Yeah,
not like tiny, but
Yeah,
probably size of this coaster.
Yeah, yeah.
Sort of thing.
So that's still 100 on the door, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or maybe 200.
But I liked working with that size. It was like a creative limitation in itself.
Did you keep all those
Yeah, I do actually have like a bunch of them,
in a book?
like in a drawer, stacked together, with a lot of other art pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not judging that. I just am curious
No, it's okay.
where history goes, right?
Yeah, that's a little bit messy for sure. I do have a lot of sketchbooks which are more like.
Yeah, because I think when you introduced us when we played at Speakerbox, you had a notebook where you had written down, you'd done some homework. It could have been 5 seconds, or it could have been talking to Eddie in the hallway or whatever. But you definitely had stuff written down in there, and I looked. And am I wrong? You were speaking off of notes. No, it wasn't a notebook. It was a sheet of paper.
Right.
Okay, I'm seeing. This is how I do history, right? Like you had a 1,000-page book with the Sistine Chapel drawing in it, and Roman Anton's on the next page. Right. Okay, so yeah, all right. So you're not some maniac carrying around some tome of drawings. You put them where they belong.
Well, I did for a while have this small book that I would keep on me at every time, and
Nice.
as well. I filled that out now.
Yeah. Did you keep it?
Yeah, I still got it. Yeah. Not on me right now though.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm just trying to figure out. The retrospective is always a cool thing to me as I get older and sort of want to look at early, middle, late, of artists, or think of Foo Fighters or contemporaries of mine. Just sort of looking at album cover. It's just sort of always cool to see it. And you read these stories, these horror stories where. I burned that stuff, or I threw it out. It's like, what? How do you do that to us? It's the selfish reason. I don't care about you. How'd you do it to me? I'm a fan. Okay, so you get here. I mean, how was renting an apartment in Bangkok? Was Dad here still, or?
Yeah, my dad had helped me with that part initially.
Okay. Because that would be daunting to anyone, just to sort of.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, my dad had stayed put for a little while, but he had left as well. And, it's funny after that, like my dad soon came to live in Thailand a couple years after I had lived here.
Yeah.
Which was interesting, yeah. But, just with this internship, right, there was at one point we were doing a commercial for Ford Ranger, the truck. And
Nice.
I was chatting with the creative director on set, this British guy who's from the north, from Sheffield.
I thought you were going to say from Chiang Mai. It's okay, so from the north.
Yeah, sorry, the north of the UK, yeah.
So he's the creative director for Ford coming to town to make this commercial?
Yeah, so he had come to our production house, and we'd helped him find the studio. And
you're going to do local footage of a Ford Ranger in Bangkok or something?
Yeah, we had this idea about, he'd had this idea about a Ford Ranger that was like doing a skip rope with a chain.
Okay.
And we had essentially created this like thing that lifted up the Ford and put it back down, and then in post-production we'd put this chain going over it. And
sounds horrendously dangerous. Right?
But it was great
car lifting thing in Thailand.
And
an airbag.
I was chatting with this guy, and I was like, "Oh, that's a pretty cool idea, right?" And he's like, "Oh, where are you from?"
Yeah.
One of those southern fairies and all this.
So I want to step in. You've said that twice now. In my world, a southern fairy would have had certain connotations if I'd have said that.
For sure. But it's more just like a way of Northern English people calling Southerners quite soft.
Right.
Yeah. Because there's this sort of stereotype in England, shall we say, that Southern people are very, very posh and proper, but also, I go out and walk the dogs and hunt foxes, but we have to be back at this time for tea. Whereas in the north, it's like, come on, man, let's fucking go.
Yeah. Okay. I would probably challenge you to say fairy was intended exactly as how it's not supposed to be interpreted.
Yeah.
But okay, so he called you this, and you sort of did the commercial together. And so you're here. So you're doing it. So 6 months turned into a year, or no?
Yeah. Well, I was doing that, and then. Essentially, with this creative director, right, we were chatting away on set, and we were just talking about things like Blade Runner and all this, And at the end, he was like, "Come work for me. I'll train you as a writer, as a copywriter for Ford."
Back in the UK?
No, in Thailand, in Bangkok.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And that turned into 3 years.
Wow.
With him, and that was great. I learned a lot on the job. I was in an advertising agency, and I found another place to live, and You know, I in that time I'd found the poetry community as well, and that's when I became Swordfish and all these things, and you know, my art was starting to make its own moves, and I just felt like I was really starting to really hone in on my creativity and my imagination and my pareidolia and all of this. It was all coming together, and I was building a career, and you know, I started learning Thai as well. I had a lot of Thai co-workers, which helped. And, you know, you just have the opportunity to use it every day. So that helped. So, yeah, it was just like this point in my life where everything was growing so rapidly, but you just keep on going with it. You don't even question it.
So was the ad agency in an office with a badge and a tie and a desk and a?
It was in an office, but it was I was in the creative team, so okay. I could wear what I want. Whereas like the accountant team, they have to dress nicely.
And you had a ping pong table or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay. Right. So good. So you're in a safe zone. There no gun shooting. It was a nice, This is soft things. Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. So that's interesting. And so. So did you say do copy? How did he describe it as what?
Copywriting.
All right. So did that develop your skill, or was that a side street? Was that a right hand turn?
That was where I did the bulk of my learning. For sure.
Okay. So you had some discipline around writing start to finish for someone who needed it to do something advertising like, but you were now a professional writer, at least in your mind, and you're like. So was that the goal, or was that where you landed? Do you think you brought yourself to the place you were destined for, or did?
Well, you know, it's like everything I've learned, it can be applied to what I want to do.
Yeah.
You know? It's like I tell stories, but I'm doing advertising. But even then, those writing skills feed back into my storytelling.
Did you get criticism that you found helpful? Like, Swordfish, great start, but we asked you to write about blue socks, and you have an elf in here. And what do you? Were you like, oh, I'm not doing the assignment, or was it pretty much I got it right away and I'm on?
Well, there was a lot of backlash and all this sort of thing. You know, I appreciate how patient my boss was. He would tell me like, "You're a great poet, but you're a fucking terrible copywriter."
Right. Stay on track. Yeah. And did you take that personally, or did you say, yeah, I know this is going to be a challenge for me because I'm aware of what I like and the parameters of this job?
Yeah, you know, I did take it personally, but it was also just because I wanted to do better.
Yeah.
And I would always like keep pushing myself and keep writing more. And it's like, I have to write about this Mustang and, you know, it's got a new engine and it's sleek and all this. And, you know, if I was taking that Mustang for a drive through the Misty Mountains or something, it'd be a bit easier for me. But there's a lot of
you got to describe 8 cylinders or something, right?
Yeah, in a way that, you know, people are actually gonna like, because no one fucking likes advertising, you know. And that was literally what my boss told me on my first day. He was like, "How many adverts do you think you see in a day?" I'm like, "I don't know, like 100." He's like, "Probably about 3,000. How many of them do you remember?" Yeah. None.
Okay, well, and I get your point when you say no one likes it. I think people probably like good advertising, but I get your point that.
But you know, advertising is like a psychology thing,
right? And
you know that I felt tied into my storytelling and what I try to evoke through some of my art as well, because you know it is supposed to be human.
Yeah.
You know, I like to paint these very surreal worlds and scenarios, but the reactions and the creatures themselves are very human, you know, even though they're not humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. So we're approaching COVID now on your timeline and mine, right?
Yeah,
so I want to ask about this, you know, so I'm trying to figure out, I read a book by Carlos Castaneda in early days of my education. And I think it was called A Separate Reality, maybe. And it talked about vision quests and things of that nature. And one of the takeaways for me, right or wrong, good or bad, and it may be complete nonsense what I'm saying here, was that folks who take hallucinogenics can sort of train the art and go on vision quests, right? Which means, sounds like a quest, sounds like you can choose a path or climb a rope or go down a ladder or up a ladder, however that works. In COVID, before COVID, after COVID, can you channel pareidolia? Can you say, all right, need a new gremlin? There he is. Or is it not? Does it come to you? So are you on the vision quest, or are you getting chased down alleys and they pop up at when you least expect it, when you open the door, like in COVID?
Right. So like before COVID, it's always there. And then I'm just thinking, okay,
There it is.
I'm going to make that into a sea turtle or something.
Yeah, nice.
And during COVID, it was still there, but manifesting in a different way.
Mm.
And then after COVID, it's still there. I feel like where I'm at right now, it's still there, but it doesn't have as much, how can I say, I don't have as much focus on it, I suppose, because I still see it, but it's more like a starting point rather than something final, you know. It's like I can look at this and think, okay, I see what you are, and I can take that as the core, but like now I want to build more around it as well. Whereas before it was very much just like, that's what I'm seeing, that's what it is, you know?
Mm. Do you think it was taking you in like the height of COVID, like I'm going to grab Swordfish by the neck and make him see me?
I felt like it was never some external thing. I felt like it was always just myself.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it like I would call these things my children.
Yeah.
And one of my friends a long time ago, he described them as like positive nightmares.
Right.
I really like that.
Yeah, I sort of am aligned with that on I'm going to call it Creatures, number 4, the yellowish, blackish one. I thought you could live with this comfortably or you could be afraid of this, but I think to save yourself, you have to like them or you're in trouble.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I was never afraid of them until that one time during COVID where it was, you know, and that made me realize just like how influential stress can be on the mind.
Was that the monster that was eating the city?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Know?
All right, I'm with you on that. The one you sent, yeah.
Yeah.
So let me do a test. If you turned around and looked at that wall over your other shoulder, or either one, do things leap out at you from those?
Yeah, so like, let's say, you see where the stand is, right?
Yeah.
Just here.
Yeah, those two.
Yeah, so this one here kind of looks like a seed.
A seed.
With an eye in the middle.
A seed with an eye in the middle.
And there's some little legs. And this one here looks like a squid.
A squid.
You see these like two circles that like eyes, like a squid going to the side.
Oh, big. Okay, yeah, okay. All right, I'm with you.
You see what I mean, right?
I could convince myself I do. I didn't see those like the elephant one you gave me before. Like we both looked up and saw the elephant simultaneously. Right. Was it reality? But interesting. Okay, so it's an acquired, and I mean it's really sort of almost a skill now too. Like
it's a skill that requires no effort. It's already there, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, who's to say? You know, you've had 20 years of training now.
I suppose so.
Right? And so
a lot of those years, I have to say, it's just like just letting it pass by, you know. It's like
but that's like saying catch with a baseball as a kid isn't the training that leads you to the major leagues. You know, having one bounce off your glove and hit you in the head when you're 4. You know, doing 100 scary ones that made you turn around and run right away may have been the training, but you know, you did that pretty quick. Like, yeah, right there, those two. Bam. You didn't pick the one up there. If you'd have gone to the farthest corner and said, how did he see that so quickly? Right? Like, okay, you know, so there's some jigsaw to this, right? And I'm making all this up, and I'm not trained to do anything other. I'm not sure I'm trained in anything. So I'm just trying to understand what this is like to live on the other side of it. Okay, good. So let's we've been talking for a while. Was there anything you wanted to add for the period of time we've covered up to this point? Because I want to sort of maybe move into not the next part of the podcast, but I want to start talking about what I looked at the last couple of days.
Sure. I mean, I suppose, you know, if you want to save it for a later part of the podcast, I feel like what I would like to talk about is just about, you know, since moving to Thailand, how I sort of found my community and I found what I really wanted to do.
Yeah, let's do that. That's good because you had some advocates for you that would point to you across a crowded room and say, things since I've known you. So Max or Eddie or folks, and I've sort of watched you over 5 or 6 years get older. It makes me sound like I'm your dad or something. I don't mean to sound it like that, but we've been in the same community, but we've never really talked. And so I think I watched one of your earliest, if not one of your first performances at Live Lounge. And Max was one of our early podcast guests. Nice. So that's something. But so, yeah, let's talk about that. So you rent an apartment, you get a job, you switch jobs, you go to an ad agency.
Yeah. You
have COVID, but how do you know?
Well, this is like, say, around like
2016.
Yeah, 2017 or something. I'm working in this ad agency at the time, and one of the art directors, who really, really great guy, who's also the one who instilled a lot of confidence to really like pursue my art as well. What's it called? He says, "Hey man, there's this poetry event happening." And I think, "Oh, okay, let's give it a go." And I'd never done poetry in my life, and I don't even know why I was just so keen to jump into it, but I did. And I turn up, and it wasn't an open mic; it was actually a poetry slam, a competition. And I'd written this very meta piece about my life. I'd talked about a childhood memory, basically, of... I could recite the beginning of the poem for you if you want.
Where were you at when you did this?
You mean like...
Where was the venue?
Oh, it was at Live Lounge.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I may have... There would be serendipitous if I was at it, and it doesn't matter, but I think I might have been there. But go ahead. So blast the first part of it and see if you jog some memories for me.
So, yeah.
But it's not about me. It's about your first time at the stage.
When I was 6 years old, I found a crab by the beach. I picked it up, it whispered to me, I listened to its speech. He told me life by the rock pools was dreary, droll and dull, and he lived in constant fear of being eaten by a seagull. And that's the beginning, right? So like,
that's right in line with you sort of the whole dynamic you've presented today too. Like,
which is strange. It's interesting to look back on. But
well, and it's funny you use the seashell because that's such an important part of the imagery of the red duck too, right?
Yeah, with the crab, right?
Right. Well, yeah. Right. With the we won't ruin it because if you do that today, I want it to be a surprise. Okay, so that was your first one. So you go and they let you in. It's like a competition. You're on a score sheet, top, bottom,
exactly.
middle.
And I didn't realize until I actually got there.
You won that one, didn't you?
No, I didn't. No way.
Oh no, I remember. Yeah, there was. Okay, right.
But I what's it called? I'd gone through to the second round.
That's right.
Because there's a handful of poets that have to perform to actually win. And what's funny is the one of the, I believe he was like the Canadian champion of poetry was there. And he won that night. Right. And I just had a feeling that he was going to win from the moment he walked up.
Yeah.
There was something just about his like prowess and like the look in his eyes changed. Like I was just like, this guy's going to be amazing.
Were you swapping out one fierce competitive arena for another and going to do this, or was it a different safe space or a different space?
No, it was just something completely new that I was trying, and it did turn into a new space in a community where I could share all these crazy ideas that I was having all the time, and with that show itself, right? I'd gone through the second round, and they're like, "Okay, poets, prepare your second poem," and I'm like, what?
That's right. What did you do?
So I literally during the break I just wrote this whole thing, and it was an incredibly meta piece as well, where it's like, this guy's gonna win. This guy was incredible.
Yeah.
Like thanks for listening to me. Like thanks for all this. I'm now gonna leave to find Atlantis and all the, just like having fun with it. But
do you still have that one?
I'll have to find that one.
The scrap drawer. All right. So this is your introduction to the community. That's how you found it, was through a mate at work who said, Swordfish, there's this thing.
And at that point I wasn't even Swordfish.
Right, you were.
I was just non-guy.
Right.
It wasn't until I'd done a few shows and things like that, and I was really getting into it, and Pablo, the guy who runs Lyrical Lunacy, he was talking about like, when you get up on stage, when any poet gets up on stage, it's not really you, it's like something else. And I completely agreed, because you know, it doesn't feel like me. It is me, but it's like a different side of me.
Oh.
And I had to give that a name. And I remember at the time I had this really strange dream about a swordfish.
Yeah.
And I thought, something feels kind of right about swordfish. I couldn't really explain it. And it was something that I told myself, I'll figure it out as I go along. And maybe swordfish will reveal its meaning to me. But at that time I was like, all right, I'm going to be swordfish now. And just stick with that.
Yeah. I mean, you're not asking for my feedback. It's not merited here, but it was interesting when I saw that video when you were introduced to Swordfish. I thought, is that a doppelganger? I'd say, no, he doesn't see his ego as the Swordfish. I thought I'm going to have to work on understanding that chosen name. And then it chose you, I don't know, but it was interesting. It was jarring for me having seen you perform before, but that was not the same guy that I've met presenting in that. And I thought, what in the world is this? And in particular, there's a very emotive scene in that poem or that spoken piece where you hit a high note. And I was like, who is this guy? And it was very cool. I mean, I was fanboy at that point. I was like, I'm in, because I was already stuck like the trip to the cave or the castle. I was like, I'm all about this, going out to maybe find if you have superpowers, right? This is the classic quest. But it was funny because I was like, okay, this is not the fellow I met. Mm-hmm. So I'm hip to Pablo for saying, pick a thing, whatever that means. And I know that's not what he said, but that's what I'm hearing.
I guess
so,
yeah.
So you got there and you did it. And so life changed, or you go back to work, you punch the clock, and you're like, all right.
Well, I'm still, I'm still working and growing in those areas, but it's like every week, every 2 weeks, there's a show. So it's like, that's a chance to write a new story. Yeah. And, I wrote quite a lot, and I'm really glad that I have a lot of these stories to my name. With COVID and things like that, it slowed down a bit. It was a bit hard for me at one point to really like get back into it, but now I feel like I'm getting back into it, but I also have other things to play with as well. Like, I'm getting my art to a point where I can combine the two, and music as well, using all of those three to really create some powerful storytelling. Yeah.
So, okay, great. So you said, hey, maybe I said, is there anything you want to add? You say about joining a community. You just referenced Lyrical Lunacy, which is the name of the community. You mentioned the ombudsman or leader, or I doubt they use words like that. The guy who seems to be the focus when the sessions start. Pablo, I don't know him, but I assume he would, if I called him leader, he would say, we don't acknowledge those titles. I don't know. I'm making this up. And so you're in it and you're doing it, and you're also working to put bread on the table or money, but you're developing skills at the same time there. You're advancing the drawing. The curious thing that we all found out, did you work more or less during COVID on things like that? There are people who worked less, even though they were provided an opportunity to work all day on a table.
Exactly.
Boy, live and learn, right?
Yeah.
You need the world of distraction around you to make you focus more, maybe. You come out and work harder. So either way, you got there, and now you're cranking stuff out, and you were able to send me within 30 seconds of my asking, what can I look at? Bam, 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 bam. So I got a bunch of stuff. So I thought that was cool, and I thought, well, this has changed, I think, since I met the fella. He's got, and I'm sorry, that's the wrong word choice. Since I met Swordfish, here it comes. So I have 8 things, Frank. So this is where we'll do some cutting and splicing. I might pull up my phone to look, and this is we'll have to doctor this. So the images first. You sent a series of can I call them drawings, or are they done? Sure. Are they done as drawings, or are they done on a computer, or?
I do them on an iPad.
Okay.
These ones were
And so I gave nicknames. I apologize if they're wrong, but you sent them in sequence, and so I looked at the first one, and I called it Sleep. It was this one.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And so it was that one, Frank. So we're going to cut in a big one of that I sent you later. Sleep. Is that someone sleeping, or is that someone dead?
So that is someone sleeping.
Okay.
I call this piece Gifts that persist.
Okay.
And essentially this was a way for me to like acknowledge ancestors. You know, it's like the gifts that are passed down to you and all these sorts of things, because you know there's all these things that I naturally find myself good at, but that came from something else as well that has a past to it through our ancestors and through our families and things like that, you know. So
cool.
that was a piece that was like acknowledging my place in that chain of family and ancestry.
So are you the last piece or a middle piece, or you didn't get that specific?
Yeah, I'd be the last piece.
Okay. So Frank, well, we'll be posting these while we're talking behind it, and so hopefully people can see this, but the last piece would be the white piece, and I don't mean that as a Caucasian, but as a white drawing here. So so is this paint on canvas, or?
This one is done digitally.
So digitally. So how do I talk to an artist who's digital intelligently about what I'm seeing? Is this done with the software program that I would know, or is this?
Yeah, I made this on an app called Procreate.
Procreate.
Yeah.
That's a bold name, right? In the world of procreation.
I mean, a fantastic app.
Right.
They really give you a lot to work with.
Okay, cool. So then I flipped to number 2. I called this Bird.
Let's see. Yeah, okay.
Bird, Franco. So we slap that one in here.
This piece is called Over Grand Hin, and Grand Hin is like the name of the mountains. Hin meaning stone in Thai, and essentially,
so Wahin means what?
Hin is stone.
So
Hua Hin is, I guess that would be headstone.
Headstone. All right. So Grand Hin, Hin. Okay. So Over Grand Hin.
Yeah.
Okay. So it is a bird, right?
Yeah. So one thing I should mention with my art, I like to paint scenes that have, you know, there's a story before this image and there's a story after this image. What you're seeing is just somewhere in between of that story. And in this case, right, you know, these two creatures from a clan have met with this bird, and this bird is like, I'm going to show you something that you've never seen before. So that, you know, it takes them up high and shows them.
Get on my back and we'll go?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, you know, these two creatures are like so inspired by it. That's what comes after the story, is inspiration. One
is sort of human and one is sort of helmeted with a mane.
Yeah, they're both sort of meant to have these like stone faces,
right?
Like a rabbit and a dragon sort of thing.
So do they ever get to the place?
Well, this is where they're at now, like just seeing that view from above.
But the bird said, "I'll take you somewhere." So do we have the next vision?
This is all you're seeing.
All right, cool, nice.
Maybe one day you'll see some more.
Over Grand Hin.
Yeah.
Hin being mountain, hill, mountain, cow. I don't know. Yeah. All right, so I called the next one Scorpion Flower, which I have to admit I had to look in and get a little detailed, because there's a scorpion-like creature that's not really a scorpion as I look harder, with a beautiful tail that looks like some type of the Wednesday Buddha figure's background, right? Whatever that is.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a tail, so it could be a flower.
Yeah.
With other animal friends. One looks like a deer with some little people on his shoulder, or a knife in his back, actually, or a knife in his bag, and then a lobster creature. Yeah.
So I called this one a foolish forage in Fildrig Forest.
Wow, nice.
And essentially, it's the same thing where you're just seeing one part of a story, and these two characters have been traveling through these mystical woods, and they're collecting different plants and finding different information. And, you know, they're heading home, and this one guy's like, "Oh, look at these flowers." And he's about to pick the wrong one, you know.
And so what type of flower is that?
That's no flower for sure.
Right, okay. And so what flowers does he have in the bag?
So you can see, this guy, right?
Yeah.
It's like...
guy on the left, the deerish creature.
I had actually thought of a name for these, like, I think it was like mint wind or something like that.
Right, okay, yeah, so I figured as much.
Yeah, you know, these kind of plants that they'd use for making potions or enchantments and things like that, yeah.
And so they're in...
Fildrig Forest.
Fildrig Forest, all right, yeah. So, and they're going home for the evening, last pick?
Yeah. One little side note, it's quite hard to see, but there is actually a spirit in this picture. There is a ghost hiding somewhere in this frame.
I thought I saw some hands reaching up, but okay, so ghost. So let me see. Is it this green blob here with a little eye, or is that the edge of another flower?
That's the edge.
Yeah.
I could point to you.
Well, let's let the viewers challenge themselves and see if you can find it. All right. So and do the creatures have names?
These two are nameless for right now.
And the third assailant is nameless.
Yeah.
Okay.
They will have names.
So here's what now I have new information. So was this a pareidolia?
This one wasn't actually.
Huh.
Yeah, this one was more just like I wanted to test my visual storytelling. Yeah.
And was Overground Hin pareidolia?
The faces of the two creatures
which are so minor in the context of the composition, right?
Yeah.
They're like 1/1000th of the canvas size here, right? But that was enough to get it rolling.
Yeah, it's like as I was saying, like after COVID, right? My pareidolia still helps me a lot with my creativity and imagination, but there is also these ideas that I just try to form from nothing as well, and to merge the two.
Right, like you didn't see the words Fildridge Forest on the wall.
Exactly, yeah.
Right, you got to come up with that.
Yeah.
Now, it may have been from your childhood, and we may go back and drive to Surrey and see Fildridge Forest, like, hey.
Don't pick the flowers.
Right, don't pick the flowers. Right, you ate something and you got sick, So the next one is your Basquiat moment to me. I called it Creatures.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so this one is simply called Black Joy.
Black Joy.
And I made this one because it was something like, in media with, when it comes to black media and things like that, there is a lot of pain and things like that for sure. And I would never really see stuff that really celebrated blackness and things like that.
So blacks as a way to describe African Americans or people from Okay, so I'm stuck on how that all works, and I apologize. So that's the black you're referring to.
And obviously that's an experience that I know nothing about myself, but I've met and I've borne witness to a lot of black joy.
Right.
With my friends and seeing that, and I thought that's fucking beautiful. I want to capture that.
Yeah.
I'd rather make something like that rather than something that continues on this train of like black pain and anguish and all that.
Well, this is interesting now because I thought everything was a creature, and I didn't blow it up, but I do see human likenesses in here as well, and including one that's not really colored in. So my bad for calling it creatures. That just shows my limitations. I looked for, but interesting. Yeah, this one to me is okay. Yeah,
this one was a mix of just like doing random design. Sometimes I will just draw shapes and then the pareidolia can like do the rest for me. I'm like, oh, okay, that's actually the eye, things like that. And this one was a lot of just like drawing and, trying different like hairstyles and things like that.
Hairstyles, right? Yeah, right. Okay, I see that. That's so funny you mentioned that. What was there a pareidolia starting point in here?
I can't really say. I'm not
not trying to make something out of nothing. Awesome. So I'm a fan of this. I mean, album cover for sure, right? Or CD cover. I don't know how
this is
works
actually
anymore.
for one of my beats as well, which was along the same theme of like Black Joy.
Yeah. I mean, and just any one of these could be the volume 2 leader, right? Like Black Joy finds the ocean or whatever. Okay, so the next one I called Monster, which is obviously, and I don't even understand all of the pieces I'm looking at. Medium is confining me a little bit. When you try and blow it up, it pixelates and it gets blurrier. But I see a reflection in it that is a diabolically cool sort of image here, I think, or those could be shadows of buildings, but it has a blue background, so it might be hard to see. And to me, there's a big monster eating a city, sort of Godzilla. Over the thing, but I may be wrong in that. So am I seeing it right?
This piece was actually a collaboration between one of my friends, fantastic photographer, and this image here is actually an image inside one of her photographs.
Okay.
And we had worked. She had sent me that piece, and I had seen this creature, so I drew it. And this piece is called Good Karma, and essentially. It might look like this creature is eating the city, but he's really just chilling on the buildings. but you're only able to see this creature if you have good karma.
All right, I can see it.
Good for you then.
And the sort of window reflection, is that intentional, or is that something?
Yeah, that was intentional, yeah.
And is that looking out a window, or is that what I'm supposed to?
Nice interpretation.
All right, so, and is it sort of a clam mouth or a mollusk mouth with eyes inside? But really nice sort of urban landscape, I think, right?
Yeah.
So very cool. This was strangely comforting, even though I called it Monster. I thought this has a warm feeling to it. So good one, Monster, and your partner or your cohort in crime for writing it. I like that one. Second to Creatures so far. I called the next one Birds in Black World. Birds in Black World. Birds in Black World. Frank will post this up. What do you call it?
I call this the Black Mist Orb.
I was close. Black Mist Orb.
Yeah. So, I had sort of talked about how I had, especially when I was younger, I had this very eccentric side to me. It still comes out, but I feel like it comes out in a sort of impish darkness sometimes.
What do you mean by impish? Just so we share
like
the language. That's an English expression for.
Yeah, I don't know, like kind of like cheeky and maniacal, but like not in an evil way. It's more like just having fun, kind of sort of thing. Yeah, impish. And for me, this was a drawing that I was literally just drawing shapes, and then I thought, oh, that can actually be turned into a face.
Yeah,
and I had been experimenting with some music and creating these very like sort of microtonal, sort of scary sounds. And I thought about this creature in his dungeon or whatever, and he's using the mist orb to sort of peer into his goals and things like that. And
sort of the Beeple world we're heading into. But yeah, I mean, this to me, and I hate saying it reminded me of, but I started to think the group Yes from the UK or Britain or whatever, however we say that properly, had a series of album covers by the same artist, and the Yes Fragile was the first one. As I started to flip through these quickly, I started to say, oh, wow, we got the whole... We're now into a discernible style of Swordfish. Someone's going to pick you up as their album cover designer and do this series. Not that that's a goal, but I thought this one really has a sophistication that is very different. And it would be interesting to see a large rendering of this or this on a big screen or however we do that.
I appreciate that. I am interested in making album art for people, if anyone's interested.
There we go. All right. So the word is out, and you can contact Swordfish through social media when he shouts it out at the end. So here we go then. I got 3 other things from you. One was the poem, The Red Duck, or the spoken word.
Yeah.
The other was the Emerald Cut, which was music plus drawing.
Yeah.
And then the third was Ven, which you mentioned earlier. I called it... Then you called it Still. I called it Around the Fire, just so in case you sent me 50 more. And that's what I started with. And I thought, this is very cool. You want to talk about these, or are you going to do one of these today? Or
sure,
I guess you don't play, but so.
No. I mean, I can start with the Ven video.
Okay.
So
the Ven video, Frank, just to show you what we cut in here, and I lost it for a sec. I'm going to pull it up quick. I think it's... I didn't see the little... I didn't refer to this one either, so I got to come back to that. That just may be a sticker. See, I'm so sort of out of date on how all this works. I'm going to pull up Ven. So why don't you talk about it, and then I'll pull it up here.
Sure. So Ven are a indie folk band from Thailand, and great musicians, great people. And I had met one of the singers, Juan, many years ago, and we'd sort of chatted every so often, and I really respect him as a creative and as a human being and all this.
So there's music along with this, right? If I turn my volume up. So Frank, we'll do a cutout here and put the music alongside so you can hear that. Yeah.
So essentially, Juan had approached me last year and said, "Hey man, I really like your art. Would you be interested in making a music video for us?" And he sent me this song he made called Still. And, in this song, they're singing like, one Tilao, this day of ours, you know, we're
Rath, you heard that before, right? This is the one. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to make sure, because I thought, oh, this is like Yugoslavia, or, you know, like some language that you made up. I'm such an idiot. And Rath walked by and said, oh, that's Thai.
Yeah,
I was like, that's Thai? I was like, I'm so bad. So
I have to wait like a minute.
Right.
Skip a minute in or something.
Yeah, so Frank, we'll get there. Okay, so could you shout out what that means to us?
So, One Ti Rao is this day of ours.
This day of ours.
Hoi Phao Mong is like we're looking out for
Okay.
it. And then they say Yu Dong Ni, like we'll be right here.
Yeah.
And essentially what they're saying is like they're talking about death.
Mhm.
Like that day when it comes, we'll be here, we'll be waiting.
Yeah.
And you know, we can accept it and embrace it. And this is the penultimate song of their album. And then in the final song after this, they die and they're reincarnated and reborn. And I thought this was like such an interesting theme that they're exploring in the song. I really liked the spirituality of it. So
So is the Ven album a sequence story?
I believe so. Like I don't understand a lot of the other songs just because of my limitations with Thai.
Sure. But you got into this one and you understood it was
Yeah.
penultimate and it's pre-death, and the next one's
Yeah.
yeah.
But and you know, one that the singer had approached me, and I had, you know, he had told me about the scene in the desert, and I made that in my own way, and I had created these like creatures which are based off the designs of each band member, but at the same time, it's like you can't really tell who is who because it's so creature-esque.
Yeah, there's one that's hats, but I had to tell you, this is great. So when you all dig into this, zoom up the screen if you're doing this on your phone, I see 6 other campfires burning in the distance. And now that you describe it, that's such a great thing. I don't even know the song, but you've just described it to me. I'm like, oh, that's a great thing to pick up because these guys are next, right? If we're going in sequence, it's coming to you, fellas, or ladies and gentlemen, or however we do descriptions.
And they know that, and they embrace it, and I think it's really poetic.
Yeah, I thought, oh, this is. I started to think songs can have multiple videos, and I'm not sure if Beck did that way back when or something, but I thought, why not release a song with 5 videos and let people pick their favorite video? And they'd say, well, monetary, time, constraints, how many ideas can you lie about and say they were the motivation of the song? But, saying, Swordfish, if you hear the words and read the words and interpret the words, what's your interpretation of the video for the song? Certainly if I gave you one of my songs, even if I called it Black Cadillac, you may not draw a Black Cadillac. You may say, well, the part I focused on was the white line in the road. Right. So, that's what I thought of. And we'd have a video that'd say, oh, okay, that's cool. That's a new video I could do. But I thought this would go great. I thought this was sort of the Bodhi tree feeling for me, Frank. When I looked at it, I thought this is Bodhi tree. One of our songs, I thought, yes, multi-purpose videos. And I thought, well, that's lame. You can't have the same like Ven video for the Bodhi tree. But I thought, why not? I guess that's NFTs. When you buy one, you can do whatever you want with it, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Right. So, I thought, we're moving into a new day and age of art. And hopefully guys like you get to farm these out and say multi-use video, $100 each, single use, 10,000 each, or just some efficiency or some way to monetize, right? I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but I like that one because that too had a warmth to it that I found reassuring, even though it was 5 guys sitting around a campfire in the desert with other pending campfires coming after them. I thought, there's something foreboding here. I don't know what it is, and now I do, and it was death in the next chapter. Well, cool. I like that one. So Ven Still. So Frank, we'll throw that one in. We've now got Emerald Cut and Red Duck. So I would say Emerald Cut seems to be the next logical piece, right?
Yeah. So Emerald Cut is just one example of the music I make. I try to make a beat every single day, and there's a lot of trash that I make for sure, but in everything that I create, there's a little something that I learn.
Okay.
And
Emerald Cut.
Yeah, with this song I made, it was something that just naturally came to me, and I thought, oh, okay, let's explore that. And I quite like this one. It's a nice vibe.
And then you. Have a berserko piano player come into this, and I thought, Guy, it's a Swordfish, you're killing me here with this piano. I was like,
I wish I could take credit for that piano though. That's my friend Super, who
Super.
And he is super on the piano. Really a fantastic guy. Shout out to Super.
I could just picture like Miles Davis making almost, just like, just.
Yeah.
Great, real rewarding, and the emerald cut of the moose-like creature, the deer-like creature,
his skull is made out of emerald.
Right. I just thought, okay, here's the golden animal, but it still looks a little sad, but it looks a little cool, and it looks like it's strong, and it has an emerald head. So a lot of things going on in the world. So I didn't do it for the last pareidolia.
This was actually a parody, I believe.
Yeah. I can't imagine it wasn't. I mean, it's well, it's singular, right? It's It's creatures. The one I called creatures, which you called Black Joy. I mean, if you're seeing stuff like that, I would imagine that could be. We should probably take away your driver's license, right? If that's coming up, okay, Swordfish got to pull over. You're seeing too many things at once. So I'm not making fun of the craft, but it's just they're obviously different, right? They're just, and so when I try and attach my ridiculous pareidolia interpretation to it, it's just different. So then this takes us to your magnum opus, or at least the biggie you sent me, which was a 10-minute performance of you on stage at
Live Lounge, for Lyrical Lunacy.
For the Lyrical Lunacy, which Pablo is the maestro of, and you did a piece that is really fun to listen to. And I was mad at the medium again. I thought, you're trying to do this at a desk. You should be in the backseat of a car listening to this and committing your energy to listening to it. Or it should be up on the big screen at home, watching it off of YouTube. I thought doing this on a phone is limiting. And I thought, and that's how 99% of the people doing this are going to be doing this.
Exactly, yeah.
And I thought, what a bunch of garbage this is turning into, that I'm doing this on my phone. So there's a shout out to Apple. But I thought, hey, and maybe it's because I thought I knew you, or I thought, hey, this is my buddy, or I attached some artificial untruth to this, but I thought this deserves more than phone viewing.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, and I thought you're performing. I mean, you're up performing. Lyrical lunacy isn't just about closing your eyes and thinking about what you're hearing. And you're a step away, from at 10 minutes, you're a step away from a solo performance. Like everyone else get off. We're going to have a half an hour guy doing the 3-part story of the Red Duck.
Well, that's the thing. Sometimes I take a bit too much time on the mic.
Well, I thought this is, look, I mean, if this isn't intriguing to have an artfully told story, then what's the difference between 2 and 10 minutes? Well, what's the difference between that and 3 hours? Like, okay, so that maybe tests your backbone or your sciatica or whatever. But, it was clearly you moved into full expose, got Swordfish on display, nervous or not. You got rolling hard, and you got syncopation on the rhymes, and it was, I thought, oh, this is almost iambic pentameter. I mean, this is the art form you got to make it work with, because you chose rhymes for most of it, and I think there are certain oral sequences where they're talking back and forth that maybe are too short or too long to fully rhyme, but you managed that, and it was a 10-minute flow, and I thought, okay, that didn't exist prior to COVID, or he was sitting on that.
Right, yeah. That was something I had written that the same year, 2020, actually. It's probably the last poem I wrote before I sort of...
went under.
Yeah.
Well, good job. You got it out, right? And you did it in public.
Yeah, thanks. I haven't done that one in a while just because it's so long, but I do want to turn that and a lot of my poems into animated films one day. All in my art style, with the voice acting and everything.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it all makes sense to me now. Like, oh, wait a minute. If you intrude and ask this guy to help me with an album cover, you're stopping a multimedia expose from hitting the screen sooner. I thought, okay, get in line. There's other ambitions, and I'm not being facetious. I was like, this is interesting. So I want to show a clip so we properly memorialize the sequence here, and I'm checking. It's not Van Still, it's Swordfish Lilu, and it takes a while to open up. So I want to show that so Frank knows. Looks like this one, right? So we got someone introducing you. Okay. There you go. So that was someone giving some compliments. So good. So we ran through. I don't know how to past tense that one. 10 or so of your works, 9 maybe. And I did say the Roman Anton Podcast is a part 2, and you can perform or not, or hand it back to us to play music. And you said you'd like to do a poem, or you said you had something you could do today. Are you still of that mind, or have I scared you out of wanting to do that?
No, that's fine. I can do a poem.
All right, do you want to take a break, or do you want to do it now?
Yeah, do you think we can take a little break?
Yeah, for sure. I'll get you some more water. You're out of water, too. Let's shut her down for a second and come back. And could you tell us what we're going to do when we come back?
Sure. I will do a poem that I call Goat's Milk.
Goat? Oh, I love this already. You have me at Goat's Milk. All right, so we will be back for podcast part 2, Swordfish doing Goat's Milk. All right. Nice.
Yeah, thanks.
Good. Okay, welcome back to the Roman Anton Podcast. We are with Swordfish here today, and he has promised to do his poem. Am I calling it a poem?
Yeah.
Goat's Milk.
That's right.
All right, the stage is yours.
Thank you. I'm Swordfish, and this is Goat's Milk. Welcome, everyone, to this glorious banquet. The night is bright, we have the moon to thank it. So please partake of tonight's glorious feast. Take your seat and find something to eat. We've got roasted rainbows and sun-dried love, toasted paintballs topped with fried dove, puddings of pleasure and cakes of glee, and ale that flows like river streams. Oh, my mouth turns to a waterfall. There's so much food I can't even see it all. Then my eye spots a small jug of whiteness. I don't know what it is, not in the slightest. What's that, I say? Looks like liquid silk. Oh, you can't drink that. That's goat's milk. Well, is there any more? I'd quite like a taste. Sorry, there's none left. Try this yak hair paste. Everyone cheers in joy as they tuck into the grub, but my eyes are fixated on that small white jug. The goat's milk looks lush. Do you know if it's dairy? Are you still on about that? One says with a mouthful of fairies. If you're thirsty, drink this mountain dopamine. The glass was grey and lifeless, didn't have that goat's milk gleam. Is this even drinkable? As my head gave a tilt. I'd really much rather a glass of goat's milk. I already told you, goat's milk is off limits. Here, try this leech kebab. I promise it's not livid. I did try the kebab. Tasty, but the flavour is quite loud. But really, I wanted to drink the thing I'm not allowed. You think I could just dip my finger in it? It's only take a second, it's less than a sip. Or will you call it quits? I've had enough of your jabber. That's goat's milk, he says, while butter he slathers. I look around. Everyone gives their drinks a clink. No one seems to care for the taste of goat's milk. Maybe I could sneak a slurp later. No, that would make me the perpetrator. Just ignore the milk and finish your stir-fried excitement. I mean, come on. I don't want the whole night spent focused on this delicious-looking liquid. No. Here, let's try some elvish smoked spinach, or the Monkey King's crown drenched in queen bee honey, or the sapphire teeth wrapped in gold leaf money, or the spirit juice with grated demon horn, or the... no, I can't take it anymore. I've taken my pick. I want the goat's milk. I jump on the table and down the jug, sliding down my throat with a glug, glug, glug. I pause for a moment. The taste is quite dull. I can't pinpoint the flavour. Expired seagull? Pebble in the shoe? Sand in a gust? A really boring blue? A mouthful of pus? This was a mistake. I should have listened to the others. Here I was thinking it tastes like one of the world's wonders. I put the jug down, still out of breath, panting. The banquet hasn't noticed through all the banter. If I can sneak back to my chair, maybe I can suddenly open the large double doors. A bespoke figure walks in with 2 curly horns. Ah, goat! How nice of you to gift us with your presence. Please take your seat. We've got you a present, right next to the roasted pheasant. Oh no. Sorry, goat's late. Been quite the day. But goat's sure there's enough food to fill goat's plate. I jump back in my chair and hide behind the blood-brain pudding. I start to shake more with every sound of footing. Suddenly the air goes cold and the hall's filled with silence. Fight or flight kicks in and it's not saying violence. Who here and their disgusting ilk decided to drink goat's milk? Seems like the situation was about to worsen, but I was more confused why he talks in third person. Hey, this guy said he wanted to give it a taste. You there, boy, look goat in the face. Did you partake of goat's delectable beverage? Delectable? Mate, that thing was a facade. I mean, no, I didn't touch your milk. I've been here eating jelly sword hilts. Goat's got a scent for lies, and you doth stank it. Goat knew from the moment Goat walked in the banquet. There's always one. The banquet laughed nervously. So, what's to be done with me? If it's any consolation, I'm sorry I drank your milk. Oh, you will be. Goat's eyes turned yellow, his hands raised like lifts. Loro presente morok vasasist. Suddenly there was a blinding light. Next thing you know, in my seat, a puddle of white. Honestly, Goat loves it when someone has that lying stink. It just gives Goat more milk to drink. Goat scooped some milk back into his jug. Let this be a lesson to those parasitic bugs that think they can take what does not belong to them. Now, don't let the food get cold. Eat, Goat's friends. The sound of chewing echoes through the hall. Every banquet, the party gets a bit more small. Thank you.
Wow. Nice. Goat's milk. Man, it's some really evocative imagery, and I've used that word before, and I think I used it with Max, but it's interesting. I wanted to ask you this, were there influences around that style in your upbringing? Because I tried to ask you, did you like to read? Did you like to do these things? So is there someone out there that you would credit that style for, or is this Swordfish?
I mean, when I was a kid, there wasn't so much that really sort of drove me to that, but as an adult looking back, I think Dr. Zeus is someone who was really fantastic.
Willy Wonka?
That guy too. It's good chocolate,
Right.
I always wanted to try, what was it called? There's Wonka's Little Scrumptious Fudge Mallow Delight or something.
Right, but still, I mean, then you just have this radical departure from those styles. The drink that I'm not allowed, a mouthful of pus, stank it. There's these, I don't remember any of the other ones having these sort of interesting conjugations of verbs. And you have a bunch of them in the Red Duck as well, where the surprise of the line is the tense lining up, and it's funny. I mean, it's pure humor, right? It's like, oh, that's hilarious. And it made me laugh out loud twice, which when you're recording, you're sort of like, all right, okay, be quiet. But really, well done. And just the sort of juxtapositions of concepts I'm not ready to put together, and then you're offering them up to me to put together, and they're together and they work very well. So do you spend a lot of time, or do these come to you quickly? How does it work?
It's usually different with every poem. For Goat's Milk, this one was literally just like, I did this one in like one sitting actually.
That's
it's
crazy.
Like, let's just write.
And thank it? Did you? Yeah. That's the second or third line?
Sometimes it's like, oh, what rhymes with banquet? Stank it? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
But that idea literally just came from like goat's milk. Oh, this is goat's milk, right? And then let's turn that into something.
Is yak hair paste a real thing, or do you just make it up?
Yeah, I hope it's not a real thing.
Jelly swords, was it, or
jelly sword hilts?
Yeah. So is there any medicinal influence in any of this, or is there none of the
Not
above?
really, actually.
Yeah, okay.
I would smoke a bit of weed in the past and things like that. Now I'm trying to be sober from it.
Yeah.
But for me, really, like that sort of thing never really helped with the creativity. More with just like calming down.
Yeah. And I don't mean to attribute. I don't want to.
I understand because artists are very sensitive people, and there's a lot of times where people will turn to that kind of thing.
Wow, just a really nice setup, a nice delivery, and for some reason, just very well done. I mean, I liked listening to that, and I liked the story. In the Red Duck, where if you guys watch this, you can see a similar performance, much longer. The protagonist or the antagonist, I guess the protagonist is a bat.
That's right, Betrissa.
You don't tell us when you name him that he's a bat, right? Or do you up front?
I went back maybe at one point, maybe.
But you do into the story. So
right.
Is the protagonist here a goat as well?
No, the character is just a character.
Right.
It could
okay,
be
so we don't define it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how you sort of hold these surprises out and place them like you did in the Red Duck. Who's who, and sort of it gets very clear. I mean, so you give us the anticipation that the duck is coming, and you're going to the duck's palace castle or home lair, and then it turns into be a massive duck, right? So
and the castle is
right,
ridiculous.
It's
well,
just opulent and crazy and gold stuff. And here you have again this masterful goat leader that. Obviously, is it his milk? Did he buy the milk? Did he get the milk? I mean, so he likes his goat milk, right? So it's just, and you make us figure that out at a point, right? Mm-hmm. And you could spoil it and do it up front and say you're going to have to figure out this thing. But and so it's a real interesting narrative device. I don't feel like I'm prepared for to hear in spoken word or poetry,
right?
Because I think it's a challenge of sorts to say. Oh, what? This is a goat now, right? Like,
yeah.
And so you have these sort of things that knock you off balance. Thank it, drink the thing I'm not allowed. There's the moral lesson. Like I want the thing, I want the forbidden fruit, right? And so, yeah. So it's not just fanciful.
Yeah, it's definitely like surreal, but I try to keep reactions and all this realistic,
Right, and then there's sort of a parable to all of these, and even when you're painting, it's sort of like the Ven. Now that you've described what motivated it, there is this campfire's preparing you for the next thing, which is going to be tough, probably, right? 'Cause, so philosopher preacher, right? Is this, is there a help book coming out of this? It's just interesting where this sort of goes, because it's there's lessons here in this stuff, I think.
Yeah, in this one, it's definitely, I sometimes when I write a poem or a story, there is like a clear intention of what the meaning is, and there's definitely lessons in goat's milk as well. Though I feel it's one of those poems where it's like I had a bit more fun with it. It's like the guy just turns into milk.
Right.
It's like, should have listened.
Well, right. Well, but that's,
I
mean, isn't that the whole point of Green Eggs and Ham?
True.
I mean, and to get the message across, maybe to a mind willing to be instructed through these fanciful things.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the adult's going to say, I don't know about Green Eggs and Ham anymore, but still the message is the same, right? This is the golden rule message, right? Be careful what you ask for. Something like that, right? You wrap it up. Yeah. So, well done. I mean, it's Swordfish. That was cool. I like it. You threw me off there. I thought you were going to repeat something or do a subset. So, do you have 1 million of these? Do you have 2 of these? Where are we at?
I have about 20, 25 stories like that.
That you performed live already, or are they sitting in the back queue yet?
I have performed all of them. There are times where I would write a poem specifically for a show. This was like back in the day when I was just getting into it. It was like every time I went to a show, I wanted to have something new.
That's hard work for every 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, but I really enjoyed it. And even now, there's like a lot of stories that I have that I'm yet to fully execute into a poem. And, for me, it's like I'm at this point where it's like I'm developing all these other skills. So I have to sort of decide, do I want this idea to be a spoken word, or do I want it to be an art piece or an animation or something like that, But they could all be all of them at the same time as well.
Well, I think that's a good problem to have. I think, give yourself credit for breaking out of whatever happened to you when you opened that cupboard and locked it. No, and I say that sincerely because I think you're actualized from the person that I met before who, when you offered up our books and our music books in the box set, you said, I remember you looking at me like, what do you, box set? I mean, you talked to me like, what are you talking about? And I thought, he actually is sort of interested in that for some reason, like the multimedia.
Right.
And that was a very brief exchange, but I thought, oh, maybe he's a believer. Maybe he would buy the box set when I put it in front of him. But not buy it, purchase it, but right, 50 things coming into the stream could be any one of them. Yeah. So way to go. I mean, you got to give yourself a pat on the back. If that's what was the result of COVID, then I'm a true believer. So next Lyrical Lunacy, I'll keep an eye and see if you're on the masthead. But
yeah.
Well, cool. Well, so thanks for that, Franco. We're gonna go to the Brownstone. Is that all we call it? Is Brownstone?
Yeah, Brownstone Studio. Yeah.
Oh, Brownstone Studio. So that's up in Onut. So ON space capital NUT. That's what we call that part of town. I think it's a subway stop. I don't know if the MRT BTS how that works. We're gonna take a car there. And we're going to go see the studio. I think they're opening early for us today, but you picked this because it's a place you like to go to?
Yeah, it's a really nice place. Just there's always a lot of very interesting music events going on there. The people there are really nice, but in itself, it's also just a nice hangout spot.
Lyrical Lunacy there?
Lyrical Lunacy isn't there.
Poetry, slam poetry?
There have been some poetry slams.
Have you performed there?
I have, yeah.
Okay, good. So we're returning to a comfortable place where you performed and got away with it.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So thanks for doing that performance. Appreciate you coming in. Let's hit the road and go up to part 3 and go check out your spot.
Sweet.
Thanks. All right, good. We are at the Brownstone Studio.
Yeah, that's the one.
In Onut in Bangkok. So Let's see if we can do this from memory. So Asok, Pramprong, Tonglor, Ekamai, Prakanong, Onut.
Yeah.
So that's how far you are. So that's not that far at all. It's a couple miles. Took us about 15 minutes to get here from the Rembrandt studio.
Not too bad.
And so you say, we're just sitting outside in the parking area, in the hangout area. We're going to get some other footage. So we were over by a cafeteria eating space. We walked through the lower floor of the studio. We're going to go up to the studio in a minute. So you performed here before?
I have performed up there in the studio before, but I've seen so many performances at the studio. That's why it's one of my favorite places, because every time there's always something awesome going on, you know.
And most of the performances in that room, if it's big bands?
Yeah, big bands will go there. Normally they'll have like 3 or 4 bands a night if there's an event or something. One of my friends used to own this little studio space. He's moved down south now, but you know, and they make all these big sculptures and
up the stairs there.
Yeah, and
nice.
I believe in this room here.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, it's fantastic. You know, you get all this great art and really awesome people. Just like every time I come here, I see a familiar face or there's something really exciting going on. So
nice.
I love coming here.
There's actually a recording studio here.
That's right. Yeah.
So could you go, or could I go in there and ask them to help me mix songs, and they'd have a?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I went. I realized on the way here that a friend of mine and I came to see a band play in that room there, and it sounded great, and it was fun. It was packed.
Yeah.
A lot of people here. I think it was even during COVID when we did it, which was even more surprising.
I do remember.
That they broke any rules.
Yeah, they had like a big event after COVID, like a resurgence or something. And it was awesome. Yeah, you know, people were selling like stickers and cakes and all these different stools as well. It was really awesome. Great place.
So it seems to me it's a mix of the Thai music scene, and then there's other performance stuff, spoken word, poetry reading.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have it in a room like that.
Right.
There was a show called Broken Souls, and you know, they did comedy and poetry and live music and things like that. Yeah, it was really good.
Okay. And so you'll come here to see music, just as a...
Yeah.
Okay.
Or sometimes people might be selling clothes or even like pedals and things like that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
For guitar?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All kinds of things going on here, you know, they really mix it up a lot. So that's why I like it. Yeah.
Okay. And so when you just read to us Goat's Milk, were you nervous doing that?
I was, you know, I tell myself actually, if I'm not nervous, it's not going to be a good performance. And I find this a lot actually on the nights when I'm about to perform or something. I'll get super nervous, like I'm really shaking and everything. And it's honestly essential for me, because if I'm not nervous, it's not a good performance. That anxiety and all of that transforms me into that next state, into Swordfish, you know.
Transforms you into Swordfish. Yeah, interesting. I didn't sense you were nervous, and I didn't sense you were really even reading it. I sensed you had it memorized, but you had a thing in your hand that
just
you
in case,
to.
you know. I mean, there was some confidence with it, of course, but there's always some nerves, you know. But on those big nights and during the shows, there's a lot of like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna go up on stage in front of all these strangers in a minute.
Strangers, you know? So
even if it's people I know.
Right, probably the 100 people there you know. Right, so it's not strangers. Yeah, and I'm not trying to say it's good or bad one way or the other how you respond, but it's just interesting to see, because I didn't sense any performance anxiety at all. So that was very cool. And so when you come to places like these, do you see your future in terms of performing at places like these, or do you see it more online or more digital? I wonder where your future goes, right?
Yeah, you know, there's definitely a place online for my work, but a lot of the things I do, it needs that physicality.
Yeah.
And you know, here, I think I can make some cool stuff to perform here. You know, like one day I might want to try like a real sort of like epic storytelling thing where, you know, I'm there and I'm telling the story, but I have music that assists with like the atmosphere and certain actions, and even just having like visuals in the background to really help paint that world. Like something like that would be so epic. It feels like something I need to still work towards.
Yeah.
But you know, I feel like Brownstone would embrace something like that.
I think for sure. I mean, in the car on the way here, folks don't know this happened, but you showed me sort of the composite time sketch of your, boy, I'm forgetting the name of it now.
Ven, yeah.
Yeah, the Ven. That alone, to me, I thought is worth the 7 minutes you said it takes to watch that as a performance piece, but I thought sort of limitless with the combinations you put together. And I think of what Rory's doing in Japan now. So I mean, there's a lot of sort of similarities, but a lot of, you're sort of out ahead of this, so it's sort of cool. So I would say this, man, there's a couple places in town where expats go, there's a couple places where Thais go, there's a couple places that are the same place. Brownstone Studio, this space, speaker box a little bit, but Brownstone Studio for sure is a place where it seems to me like the gravity pull is to here. Yeah, so thanks for getting us in here today. We're going to walk around a little bit. Frank is going to take some more footage. We're going to definitely go up to the studio. They said we could go in there. This is outside of operating hours, so they're cleaning stuff up. So it may not look like this at night all the time, but there are probably 500 people here at night too. So Brownstone Studio owned it, Bangkok, Swordfish. It's been a pleasure meeting you. I really enjoyed it, meeting you again. But it was great today. So hopefully we'll have some fun editing this, and we'll get this out soon.
Well, thanks for having me. You know,
All right.
It's been fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Okay, that's it. Beautiful.
1, 2, 3, quiet.